Good potential. It had something there. But Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 was released in 1990. It was directed by Jeff Burr and stars Kate Hodge and Ken Foree. And it follows the story of a California couple while on their way to Florida. They, along with a survivalist, encounter the chainsaw-wielding Leatherface and his cannibalistic family. Welcome back to my Texas Chainsaw Massacre film series review. If you have not reviewed them yet, I have already reviewed the first two, and I'll have them in the link down below. And as everybody knows, a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film will be streaming on Netflix on February 18th. So in preparation for that, I'm going to be reviewing every single one leading up to that one. So now we were on part 3. And I have reviewed this one a couple of years back. I think it was very shortly after I started this channel back in 2018. I gave it a lot of praise then, but after rewatching it, opinions have changed over the years. So before I get into all that, let's get into the positives of Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I've got to say, Leatherface was portrayed a little better in this one. A little more than what he was in part 2. You know, first of all, they threw out that dumbass signature that I thought looked stupid in 2, where he does this with a chainsaw before he starts chasing after somebody. That was just dumb. I never really understood that concept. They did him a lot better in this. R.A. Mihailoff, if I'm pronouncing that name wrong, I'm sorry if I'm butchering it, but he brought a certain tenseness, he brought a certain fear to this character that was kind of missing, and I even liked the way he looked. Not that I'm dissing the way he looked in part 2, I'm looking at you, part 4, but I just like the way they patched him up. They touched him up. They really redeemed Leatherface for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, in my opinion. He just looked more tough. He had more of a physique about him that really intensified it and that upped it up a notch.
You sick fucker!
They just really redeemed that character for me. They didn't throw this dumbass love horniness about him that they had in part 2. They just gave him more of a merit. And they just really did better by this character for me. And the overall tone was better as well. You know, in 2, I always thought that one was the most funniest out of the series, the most comedic. For 3, they really toned it down on that level. You didn't have any comedic type moments in this one. They really darkened it up for this one. You didn't have any characters like Chop Top or Drayton Sawyer, and doing so, you didn't have any silly ass dialogue. You know, in 2, it got to the point where it was just silly. You just heard random stuff by the characters in that one. But in this one, because the family was so confined and it was just more serious. It was more dark in terms of tone. You don't get no crazy antics. It was more contained in 3 than 2 was.
You like it, don't you?
Because the way the family acts in this, they act like everything they do is normal. I'm going to try to avoid mentioning each individual family member of the Sawyer family because I feel like that'd be redundant because all of them were aces with me, but I feel like I'm obligated to mention one. I got to talk about the gas station attendant played by Tom Everett. I believe that's what his name is. He was weird. Not like Chop Top weird, but like when he was in the swamp and he was carrying the severed limbs of that one girl that Leatherface killed, he was holding the limbs up and splashing with her head. Was talking about we had some good times together, didn't we? Yeah. And he like kissed it and then spit in it. And I'm like, damn, this guy's definitely disturbed. He's of course a part of the family, but he's like the runt. He's the one that like directs them to the wrong turn of the road and cleans up the mess left over by the rest of the family.
Hey, got you. Yeah, I got you good. $5. It's only $5. It's a good picture. What do you say? $3.69, okay, just for you. $3.69, give it. $3.69.
No, we're in a hurry. Could you just fill it up, please?
He gave like a certain comedic presence, but not over the top like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 was. But he definitely added some flavor there, that's for sure. You can definitely tell, especially with his accent, that he's definitely like 100% hillbilly. That certain quality about him just gave the movie a little bit more of a taste. When they're talking about, yep, let's cook that meat, get him ready, and bash his face in so we can have dinner. But the way they play it off is just so disturbing. And that's what kind of amplifies this movie compared to 2. Like, everything the family in this did, they act like it was normal. When all the rest of society is like, you're sick. And that's what really did it for me. That's why I kind of put this a little bit higher than 2. And the final girl, played by Kate Hodge, wasn't bad either. I like the way she played it off. She played it off about the same as Caroline Williams in the last one. When she was tied up and... yeah, like, she was screaming a lot, but, like, what else can you do in that situation? Plus the fact that they nailed her hands to the freaking chair, to the freaking wood of the chair, the handrests. Yeah, that was pretty brutal. As mentioned before, I have reviewed this film years ago, and a lot has changed. After this rewatch, opinions definitely has changed. To come think of it, be honest with you guys, I don't think I've watched it since my last review, since I reviewed it first on this channel. So opinions has definitely changed. And here we go into the negatives. Most notably the story. It was a little cliched. It was such a generic horror film that you don't see anything new brought to the table. And by this time, they have drugged Friday the 13th into the ground, and that's pretty much what this reminded me of. This couple in the woods being chased by this maniac. It's been done before, and I just didn't really feel like it was much there. And by this point, continuity goes out the window, which I'll circle back to that, but there just didn't feel much merit. They just didn't feel like that they were bringing anything new to the table. It just felt like a cash grab, pretty much. But the story wasn't that interesting. I mean, yeah, you run into some cannibalistic family with a chainsaw-wielding maniac. You've kind of seen that before in the first two, and there's just nothing cohesive there. It felt rebootish. What I mean by that is, we have gotten to the point of the series where you don't hear nothing about anything that happened in the previous. Other than that little narration at the beginning, which there's something I gotta say about that too, based on continuity-wise, but you don't hear anything what happened to Chop Top, what happened to Drayton Sawyer. You don't even hear how Leatherface survived that blast. I mean, maybe Drayton was killed by that blast at the end of 2. Even that Texas Ranger, or even Chop Top after being plummeted down that hole by the final girl in 2. But you don't hear anything what happened to them. And you don't hear what happened to Stretch. And it's funny, if you pay real close attention, right at the beginning of this film, of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, you see Caroline Williams as a reporter, just in passing. You don't get nothing else. Okay, Stretch, what happened to you after you were wielding that chainsaw after you defeated Chop Top? It looked like you were going to go into catatonia. It looked like you were crazy. Like you were going to be hauled off to the mental ward after the events of 2. What changed? What happened? Give. You don't get nothing. It's strange. I don't even know if it was the same character she was playing, but she was playing a reporter, which was kind of similar to what she played in 2. Only it was a radio host, but still, kind of would have fit if they'd have just added that character in this entire thing. It probably would have made it a tad bit more interesting. That was just weird to me. That just like a pass of the survivor of the second one, and oh, you don't see her no more. Okay. And about Leatherface's leg brace, as much as I praise that, like how it added an extra cool look to him. Maybe he survived that blast and maybe it just did something to his leg, but it was like right underneath the table. How can anybody survive that? But yeah, again, continuity. It's just a wave of inconsistencies. And as I was stating before about the opening prologue, they said that somebody named W.E. Sawyer went to the gas chamber or was put to death, basically. There is a W.E. Slaughter in 4, but there's no mention of a W.E. Sawyer in my ratings. I researched it as much as I could, and there was nobody there by that name in the Sawyer family. Now, there was one in the Slaughter family, which appears in The Next Generation. Again, it's just, what are y'all doing? And, of course, there is a lack of blood and gore. This was, I think, one of those that was victimized by the MPAA. You make a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, setting the first one aside because that was 1974. It was just too much of a shock value. They had to draw the line somehow. But you make a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, you got to give us something. Give us some carnage candy. There was a scene where a girl gets sawed in half, but the angle that they showed it, they didn't even bother to show like a split second of the chainsaw going in her. You see like the blood splattering on her all around and her screaming, but you got to give us a little more something. Other than that, that was about the only gory scene there, and there wasn't really much there either. This film was so ready to get an X rating, but they had to trim so much of it down, and it just became a victim of the MPAA to get a R rating, because wusses, that's all they were back then. I mean, Friday the 13th is a clear first example of that. They couldn't handle anything back then. I understand the MPAA is there for a reason, but I just feel like they overboard it. And I think a lot of that has to do with the people that works there. Is because just because they don't like a horror movie, they're going to let the rest of the audience suffer because they didn't like what they seen in the first place. Come on, you're not being fair. At least we advanced a lot better since then. And the ending was kind of interesting. I heard that there's an alternate ending altogether, but when Leatherface and the girl was fighting in that pond, the chainsaw was going on. And before that, the Ken Foree character was fighting with him, and you see him clearly kill him. The chainsaw was going on. It was in the water, but it was still running. And you see Leatherface clearly kill him by pushing his head up against the blade. He killed him. The one we got, Ken Foree comes back to help the girl out by saving her from that gas station attendant, only to get knocked out by him, and she ended up having to fend for herself. So what was the point of bringing that character back? Now, the alternate ending, or the original ending, I should say, was there was this girl, this little girl, who was a part of the family, of the cannibalistic family. You don't see what happens to her in the cut we get. But in the original ending, Kate Hodge character, the final girl, escaping, and she stops near this road, and you see a cop car drive by her, and that little girl is in the back waving. If they'd have just kept that ending, I think that would have been more tense. It would have had more of an impact, but they chose to go the route we got. I don't know why, but I thought that would have been a much more interesting approach to the ending. It would have had a more of an impact and more of a reason for you to actually kind of end this movie on a better note than what we got. But despite all its flaws, Leatherface the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 still had its moments. After this rewatch, it just wasn't what I expected. You know, like I say, it's been years since I watched this, since I first reviewed it on this channel. But after rewatching it, it's just a little bit of a letdown. It does fall flat in some areas, but it's still enjoyable for the most part. On the brighter half, this film is better in tone. Leatherface is presented way better in this installment. However, if you're looking for something more and expect to see more blood and gore and good story, please lower your expectations and go on the fence. So, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Was this your favorite of the series? Did you like Leatherface's portrayal in this more than 2? Did you find the story at all interesting, or is this the dumbest one you've ever seen? Was this too much of a generic horror film? Leave me your comments down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. Like, subscribe, comment, and share as always, the big 4. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.